So my name is Rick Dehod. I work for Alberta Agriculture. I'm the farm financial specialist, and my career has been in the last 40 years. I grew up in a small beef and grain farm in northeastern Alberta. In the 80s, I was going to go farming. Two families needed a living. The guy with the equity wasn't going to go out to work. The guy with no equity got a job. And at that time, interest rates were 18%, and land prices dropped 40%. And I then had 3 sons and a wife and a mortgage, and continued to work out to make sure that I could feed everybody. So my dream for farming got cut just because the lack of capital and the demand to make a living. So what we're going to talk about today is how do you attract capital? And for a lot of people, the common phrase is, geez, nobody will lend me money. How am I going to get money? But really you have to take a look inward at, do you have a credit personality? Would anybody lend you money? Would you lend you money? So majority of times when financial institutions or anybody that's lending money looks at you, they kind of take a look at an adage, and they take a look at the 5 C's of credit. And some of you might have heard this, but this is kind of the premise for anybody that's going to lend you money takes a look at it. And those 5 C's of credit are character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. So we're going to talk about all those 5 things. And as you're preparing and you're taking a look at your journey in the agricultural industry or agri-food industry, quite often you're looking to access capital. But when you're, as an individual, when you're looking to access capital, these are the 5 things that any creditor or any lender, and that lender could be family, that could be friends, that could be a financial institution, it could be crowdsourcing. They have to know and be okay with giving you the assets or the capital, and they want it back. Isn't that novel? So the first thing is the character, and character is your intention to repay the loan. It's basically the majority of you, when you're going to start out, even in life, is what's your credit score? When you're looking at getting funds, the majority of us, when we start, we get a credit card or a small line of credit. And to get those facilities, more often than not, you're scorecarded. And that's your history on paying such things as your credit card, your phone bill, your car payments. It's what has a strong correlation, and most financial institutions will put a credit score. And even if you're in small business and you go to a trade creditor now, they'll ask you to sign credit authorization, and they'll pull your credit score to see what type of risk you are and what's your ability, what's your personality, and do you pay on time, and are you a good risk? So in Canada, there's 2 credit institutions or credit bureaus that track that information, and financial organizations, trade organizations provide them with their credit tapes. Is Equifax and TransUnion, and if you're and you can get, and I tell everybody to get your credit score once a year. Once a year, you can go get your bureau and see what's on it, because quite often there's 10 John Does. And maybe John Doe's credit information goes on your file, and it could wreck your credit rating. So sometimes you have to correct it. And it's also good to see where your credit score is. So what's your credit score? If you take a look at your credit score, it's developed. It's called a beacon score in Equifax. It takes a look at the length of your credit history, the amount you owe, the type of credit you use, your payment history, and your new credit. So the length of credit history is how long have you been making payments, and what is your credit experience, and how have you made payments. The amount owed, if you have a $1,000 credit card and you're constantly running at $1,000, that means you haven't got the cash flow, and you're not paying and you're not revolving it, so you're not as good at credit risk. Also, the types of credit use. If you're going to APCO Finance and you're borrowing money at 19% or 20%, you're a poor credit risk. Whereas the payment history, if you've got a credit card that you've had for a long time and you've serviced it in a timely manner, and new credit. Quite often, somebody will be looking for a credit, and they'll go to, say, car dealers, and they'll go to the Ford dealer and get a credit check, and go to the Chrysler dealer and get a credit check, go to the toilet get all those things at once say that nobody will give you credit. So you have to watch and manage your credit personality if you want to access credit. So what is a good credit score? And when you pull your credit score and ask for your beacon, and it's $25 a year, I think, to pull it, you'll see that 850 to 720 is excellent, and what creditors will take a look at. That's trade and, say, your financial institutions. It doesn't mean that you can't access credit at any one of these scores, say excellent, good, average, but as you move down, say you're poor, you're going to be paying the top interest rate and require a 50% down payment. You're going to have to provide more security. If you're up in this, 850 to 70, they're going to be calling you trying to sell you money. So the next is capacity, and that speaks to your ability to repay your loan. Do you have a good plan? Do you have a business plan that shows that you are able to repay the loan? What is your ability to run your finances? You might have passion about what you're growing, but are you creating enough income to pay your creditors, pay your trade suppliers, to pay your employees, and have a little bit of profit for growth and reinvestment? So do you have a good plan? Do you have a reasonable plan? Capacity. Do you know your cost of production? Do you know your costs? If you know your costs, you know what a good selling price is. And you need that money. You need to be profitable so that you can go into that next year, so you have the money to invest back into your business. Also, you have to be profitable to pay your living costs, because I can tell you from my years as a collector and a lender is that if you're not making any money and you're not paying your living costs, the honeymoon ends pretty quickly. And that's what happens. You have to make a living. So anytime when you're doing this, yes, you have to repay your debts, but what do you do in that interim to make a living? Next is capital. What's your commitment? How many people here know what their net worth is? What you owe and what you own. And if you're just out of school, quite often you're in negative net worth because you have a large student loan. And when you go to your creditors, they'll take a look at that and they'll often say, geez, we can't lend you any money. There's no leverage here. You have no money, down payment. Quite often, most of us, when we go to university, the first thing we do is we get a credit card with a $500 or $1,000 limit. And if we pay it, they move up the limit to $3,000. But if you don't pay that credit card on time, pay your phone bill on time, pretty soon you won't be able to get any more credit. So you got to manage your credit personality. If you think that, a lot of people say, oh, the bank would help me. Well, what's your credit personality? Have you got a plan? Have you got the capacity? And have you got the credit history that anybody would want to lend you money? And the collateral. How many people have played poker here? When you play poker, do you have to ante in to play? That's the same thing with borrowing money from anybody. You have to show that you have developed your net worth, that you have equity, and that you have funds that you're going to invest into your business. You have to show your creditors that you're betting some of your own money in. They're not just going to give you money because it's a good idea. There's not many 100% financiers. You need skin in the game. And as a lender, I want to see you have skin in the game, because then you pay attention. If you're 100% financed and you have no money in it, you're going to walk away. So remember, that's why you need 25%. For operating capital, you need 50%, depending on the nature of the business. Different security, and we'll talk about it, has different value because it depreciates. Land is the best. It doesn't run away. Equipment, collateral lending, it dies, depreciates, and disappears. So the length of time and the amount of money you can borrow on it differs. And trade credit and operating credit, that's a whole different animal. Also conditions. And we often talk about conditions, interest rates, term of loan. Those are conditions. But you got to understand that a lot of lenders that you're dealing with also know the conditions of the industry. So when you do your business plan, you have to talk about where are you in the market? How are you going to affect the market? How are you going to repay? Another beautiful barbecue sauce that your grandmother made, there's tons of them. Are you going to be able to sell them? Are you going to get space wherever you're going? In the farmer's market, is somebody going to pay attention? Or can you take it to commercialization and find a place on the shelf? So those 5 C's are very important, because when you're accessing capital, you're accessing yours in the banks. And you also have to think that part of the capital is, while you're fulfilling your dreams and or your business, is that you got to eat, you got to pay your rent, and you got to live. And quite often, that's your business partner, which may be your spouse or somebody else. So who is going to be working to pay those things while you fulfill that other thing? So you have to have a good business plan to convince people that they're willing to participate in your venture. And that goes for parents, that goes for friends, and all these other financial institutions that are you're looking at. And we haven't even mentioned angel financiers or people, but all those things go at different interest rates, at different security rates. So we're going to talk about some resources right here, and basically the local food group, we have venture coaches, and they resource this site on business info and starting and growing a business. And there's some great information, and those ladies and gentlemen are here today. There's a local food group from Alberta Agriculture and Forestry that'll help young entrepreneurs who are looking at getting into agriculture develop a business plan and where to seek things. And we've got these resources: funding an agricultural business or agri-food. How much money do you need? Where can I get the money? How can I get the money? And get the loan that you need. So that's on our website. There's resources, financial resources for local market and producers. We did this in 2014. It's a list of all the producers, and you can see the program name, the description, the eligibility, the amount, and then what's required. And it's again linked on this big business info site or the local food site. Then I resource this and a couple other things on security, and it's a Farmer's Guide to Agricultural Credit, and it basically what it talks about is short-term loans, intermediate-term loans, long-term loans, and what you require and what you need to expect. So if you want to access capital, you have to understand what creditors require, and that's not just banks or financial institutions, that's family members, because quite often when you start, it's family or your partner that you go to access capital to assist you in it. Or you'll be working out, starting during especially in agriculture, working in the 4 months in the summer and then spending the winter getting enough capital that you can pay your room and board till you go through that summer and get some produce to sell or whatever you're doing. So we had 15 minutes, that's all I'm going to talk about. There's a lot of places to get credit and we can take a look at it, but initially, what's your own credit personality? And would you lend you money?